Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. A year has passed since the PS5 launched and I wanted to give an update on the PS5 and Hue compatibility and whether or not we've seen any improvements. This is a follow-up to a video I released about a year ago detailing my PS5 and Hue setup. In addition to the 75-inch Philips Hue Gradient Lightstrip, I have now added 3 play bars at the bottom of the TV for greater light coverage. My TV is the 77-inch LG CX which came out in 2020. Devil May Cry 5 is one of the titles I tested in my previous video, and here it is again. When I last tried DMC5 in the 120 FPS or high frame rate mode, the lights behind my TV wouldn't sync at all. This has now been fixed and what you're seeing on screen is the game running at 120 FPS but only at 1080p. If I mash the green button on my remote, you can see that the resolution is indeed 1080p. This is a limitation of the sync box as the game runs at 4K and 120 FPS when the PS5 is connected directly to the TV. The lack of VRR is a PlayStation 5 limitation, although there are hints that we'll get VRR support at some point, hopefully sometime in the next year. In order to quickly swap between the direct connection and the connection to the sync box, I've used a Velcro zip tie to hold both HDMI cables in place. I could probably use a switch here, but I don't change the connections often enough to warrant buying one. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the game running on the PS5 connected to the Hue sync box on the left and the game running on the PS5 connected directly to the TV. In terms of quality, the game looks near enough the same at 1080p and at 4K. If I look even closer at the image, I can't see a major difference, if at all. There must be some post-processing happening somewhere, but I can't be certain. Either way, you won't be losing out on much playing at 1080p with a light sync compared to playing at 4K without the light sync. The game itself is fairly dark and the lights reflect that accordingly. When explosions or something bright enters the frame, the change in brightness enhances the gameplay and doesn't distract from it at all. This is the one and only Devil May Cry game I've played, so please excuse my atrocious gameplay. It's important to note that when the PS5 is connected to the sync box, the colour space will change to YCBCR422. With a direct connection to the TV, the colour space shows up as RGB. I don't claim to understand the differences between the two colour spaces, hence why I'll be showing more comparisons later in the video, giving you a chance to see if there really is any difference. When you're connected to the sync box and you turn on the PS5 for the first time, your TV will probably show some icon indicating that the picture mode supports HDR. On my LG CX, this appears at the top right. Dirt 5 is another one of the few titles on the PS5 that supports 120 FPS gameplay. As was the case with DMC5, Dirt 5 switches to 1080p in the high frame rate mode. A 1440p option would have been nice here. Switching back to the direct connection will give you 4K 120 FPS gameplay. If you're dead set on playing Dirt 5 at 120 FPS and you're not bothered by the more pixelated look at 1080p with low resolution textures, then playing with the PS5 connected to the sync box will be fine. I didn't experience any input lag and I was able to drive as well as I normally do in any other racing game. The scenery doesn't change that drastically compared to other games, so I wasn't expecting any issues on the light sync front. If you're sitting more than 3 or 4 meters away from a relatively big TV, I'm talking 65 inches or greater, then the low resolution won't look nearly as bad. Here is the game running in high frame rate mode connected to the sync box. In this scenario, the game is limited to 1080p due to the sync box not having enough bandwidth to push 4K at 120 FPS. And here is what the game looks like in 4K 120 FPS when the PS5 is connected directly to the TV. My original PS5 Hue sync video didn't feature the 3 Hue Play bars I have at the bottom of the TV. In addition to providing an update on the state of Hue sync compatibility with the PS5, I thought it'd be good to demo how the play bars look reacting to content. I'll be replacing the 3 play bars with a single gradient light strip and I'll be comparing them to the play bar setup in an upcoming video. Please subscribe if you don't want to miss that. With Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, when you first load the game, you'll see that the 120Hz refresh rate option is disabled. Unlike the previous 2 titles, you can't enable the high frame rate mode from within the game. Instead, you have to go to the PS5 settings, then save data and game app settings, then game presets and finally select performance mode. If you bring up the VRR information, you can see that the game runs at 1080p 120 frames per second, just like Dirt 5 and Devil May Cry 5. I'm using the campaign as an example as I'm not a very experienced player online and it was proving difficult to capture any good quality gameplay. To show the effectiveness of the light sync, I'm playing at 60 FPS and 4K. It runs super smoothly, and this is thanks to the constant 60 FPS I get even with the more intense firefights. I don't have anything to measure frame drop, so I can't say for certain there aren't any. However, to my eyes it was butter all the way through. The colour transitions with the intensity set to high are not distracting at all, so much so that you forget the lights are there. The ambient light also has the added benefit of reducing eye strain. A win-win situation all around. One pain point I'd like to mention before showing you the next game is related to the Hue Sync app. I have a Chromecast, a Nintendo Switch and a PS5 connected to the sync box. If I switch between different HDMI devices, the sync box doesn't know whether I'm gaming or watching a video. It would have been good to have the sync box intelligently switch between modes. I'm hoping the next version of the sync box does this, as it's unlikely this feature will be added retrospectively to the current version. The way I've gotten around this limitation without having to go into the app and manually change the mode is to add an Alexa voice command. You can create a routine to turn on the sync box, select the input as well as choosing the sync mode and intensity. I have separate voice commands for my PS5, my Nintendo Switch and my Chromecast. Telling Alexa to go into a mode is as simple as saying Alexa, TV mode. PlayStation 5 mode. Kena Bridge of Spirits is one of the latest big titles to be released on the PS5 and another limited to 4K 60 FPS. This means you won't lose anything in terms of performance when connected to the sync box. The pace of the game isn't super fast and it's as responsive as all of the other games I've played with the PS5 connected directly to the TV. Just as an added note, all of the games I'm testing with the sync box connection are using the game sync mode with the intensity set to high. This means the transition between light colours is fairly fast, but not so fast as to be jarring. Here are some static shots of Kena with the PS5 connected to the sync box versus Kena with the PS5 connected to the TV. I did a slow walk across this bridge to show something a little more dynamic for the comparison. On the left we have the sync box connection and on the right we have the direct connection. In person I couldn't see a difference when switching between the two inputs, and comparing the footage side by side there's no apparent difference. Let me know in the comments if you see anything. Next up is Spider-Man Remastered. I included this because when you swing through the city, the potential colours on display can change quite quickly and it's a good test of the sync box's responsiveness. This opening scene from the game is a good showcase as it cycles through quite a few colours in a short space of time. The time between the transitions is non-existent even with the swift scene changes. This responsiveness was present when I tested the sync box a year ago and is still as strong as ever. The only pain point with the current setup is the fact that there are still visible voids between the play bars situated at the bottom of the TV. If the scene on the whole is pretty bright, the empty spaces are less noticeable. Honestly though, once you start playing the game and you're fully invested in it, the empty spaces have zero impact on the experience. As I did with Kena Bridge of Spirits, I did a direct comparison of the image with the PS5 connected to the sync box versus the image with the PS5 connected directly to the TV. In this moving shot I've tried to get the framing right on each setup. Even though it's slightly off, you can still clearly see that the colours are an exact match. In this static shot, bar the difference in Spider-Man's movements, everything else is identical. Again, if you can see any obvious differences, please do comment below. And for good measure, here's another moving shot of Spider-Man traversing up this building. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is a really good looking title. Although on the whole it looks fantastic, some of the textures leave a lot to be desired. We're not that interested in the fidelity of the game for this video, so let's quickly move on. It runs exceptionally well connected to the sync box. It is a fairly tactical game, so you're stopping constantly to consume items or cast spells, which means that even if there was some input lag, you probably wouldn't notice. From my experience, it runs without a hitch, with or without the sync box, with no perceptible difference between the two. For the previous two games, I compared the image with the PS5 connected to the sync box versus the image with the PS5 connected directly to the TV, so I won't do another comparison. Instead, I'll direct you to the original PS5 and Hue Sync video I did about a year ago. Thanks everyone for watching, I'll see you in the next one.